So not really sure where I'm going to start today. I guess I'll start with, I did not do the thing I was going to do yesterday for Mother's Day, which I had mentioned a few times last week, wearing the Rotting Christ shirt around the family. But I got to thinking about it as I was doing laundry. It's like, if I do that, I'm setting it up so they will be trash talking me for however long they decide is suitable, which my family probably be for a while. And quite frankly, I don't want them pulling on my energy in that way because of something I did on a stupid commercial holiday, right? So, yeah, I decided, screw it. We're not gonna do that because I don't want to attract their negativity to be a focal point or something that I have to struggle with, just having bad energy connected. I've talked a lot about how when I'm around them, I frequently have to go clear my energy afterwards because just the negativity of my family in general. So it's like, why would I want to set myself up for them to latch onto it even longer? Because that is something that they would go back to for God knows how long. And so I rolled with the flying under the radar thing and just used to, I wear a nicer shirt, and this time it's just like t-shirt type stuff, but not this t-shirt, but I like this t-shirt, but along this line, so without the star in the middle, because I'm sure that would fuck them up. But yeah, so I didn't do that, but not because I'm afraid of them seeing me in the stuff I appreciate more now these days, just strictly from the standpoint of I don't want them pulling on my energy every time they think about it. So yeah, so we didn't do that. Also, before the thing yesterday, because that was at like 4, so it's like, well, since it's going to be later in the evening, then I'm going to go skate, right? So I skated and got sunburnt, which is not a big deal, just kind of annoying. It's worse on my back. I've been skating a little over an hour, and then all at once my back started feeling weird. It's like, I should probably call it a day. And then I noticed when I went to take a shower that, yes, I got burnt. Other thing that's kind of annoying, since I did get plants for Mother's Day to plant in the yard and did that, I got into some poison oak. It's my spots there. Yeah. Only looks like 3 spots, but the one's kind of big. Hate that shit. And I knew I got into it, and I was trying to be careful, but I still, yeah. And I wasn't paying attention until I started scratching my arm yesterday, and I was like, oh no. It's like, don't continue that, because I remember playing in the poison oak and, pulling it up in a few spots. Let's not have that be a thing. So hopefully it doesn't get a lot bigger than that, but the last couple times I've ended up with it, I've had to go get prednisone or whatever to to knock it out. But the last time, it was really close to my eye, and it's like, I could probably, kind of, we have this stuff that's supposed to help get rid of it, and I think it does work, but when I had it as close to my eye as I did the last time, it's like, I'm not taking any chances with that shit, so no. So yeah, but anyway, back to skating. When I was skating, there's one section, bug. Okay. I saw a hawk. It was like really cool. It's like, ooh, I would like to take a picture of that, but I couldn't get my phone or my camera out fast enough. What the hell, man? He's just gonna hang out with me, I guess. Oh, nope, he's gone. There, nope, and there, on the tree. Okay. Yeah, so I saw a hawk, and I didn't have a chance to get my phone. Like, I started to, and it's like, I already lost him, so I didn't. But I looped that section a little bit. At one point, I was just kind of... I was thinking about a lot of things. This is why I like skating so much. It's like, I just start piecing things together and finding clarity for myself. And at one point, okay, what I was thinking about starting out was just like, okay, how there's like this confusion with, I don't know, bullshit getting passed in government type spaces, right? But I was thinking that okay, the first thing I was thinking was, I mentioned the other day that I have had that one freaking collection agency that has been calling me like daily for a while, and like, I don't answer my phone anyway. I know it's them because the 2 occasions that there was a possibility of it being somebody else that I went ahead and answered, it ended up being them. Or there's been a couple times where I've answered it and nobody says anything right away because I don't think they expected me to to answer. I've gotten a letter from them at one point in time, but I mentioned a while back that they had absolutely... Okay, first off, collection agency. So it was originally on a credit card thing through Fifth Third Bank, and Fifth Third sold the stuff to the collection agency, or however they pass along the bullshit and all that shit, right? So I've sent them money before, and even had a payment plan set up for a while where they were just automatically taking $20 every month or 2 weeks. I don't even remember. But eventually that fell off, and I didn't really know why, but I wasn't going to look into it either. I was just kind of tired of dealing with them, period. The bigger problem with them is they had absolutely no issue changing my name on the account when I told them I had gotten married, right? So didn't need any proof, just said that I had, and that was good enough, and they changed the name. But when they changed the name, they spelled it wrong. And really wrong. So it was like, where there was an SK in the married last name, this company put SCH. It's like, nope, that's never been my name at all. And I have asked them to change it multiple times, especially since I got divorced. You know, of course, it was so easy to change when I got married, but then it was like an ordeal after I got divorced. So it's like, okay, well, I don't answer to that name, and I never answered to that name. So, yeah. The last time I answered the phone, it was a couple weeks ago. That's why, I think it was a couple weeks ago. Honestly, time blends together so much these days that I don't really know when anything happened. Had that family friend that I did yard work for the other day. She asked today if I knew when her old floor had been put in, because I helped the guy that put it in, and I've talked about him on here a few times before. And he didn't really do a super good job. And like, there's this one part that was like squeaky in the floor, and he even said at the time he could fix this better, but he didn't really want to take the time to do it. So it's like, why would, if you know you're not doing it right, would you just leave it like that? I mean, that's shitty business practice. But whatever, he didn't do that. So she asked me earlier, because they just got it redone, when or if I could remember when that was. It's like, you know what, I don't ever get rid of my text messages anymore, so maybe I'll find something. I said I feel like 2021-ish, but I said I would look and see what I found, so I started looking through the message with her, and ended up finding it was 2019. It's like, holy fuck, everything blends together. Who knows when anything happened anymore, I guess. But yeah, so a week or two ago, assumedly, I don't know, I answered the phone. It was in the middle of that stupid puppy scam bullshit that my parents were trying to go along with and all that. But I answered the phone, and it's this company, and of course, they got to give the spiel of this is the so-and-so on a recorded line, blah, 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 is this, and, asks this name, and it's like, that has never been my fucking name, and I hung up. So, yeah. But then I was also thinking, because this is all my thought process as I'm skating, right? So I was thinking about that situation, and then I was thinking about sometime in the past couple of months, I think, going back to that timing question mark, I got a letter from the IRS saying that my social security number might have been used for somebody to get a job. It's like, okay. And there was nothing they could really do about it, and it probably shouldn't be a concern. But what I could do is make sure to file my taxes on time. It's like, or file them early. It's like, I've been doing that, but you're telling me that, this thing that I was assigned at birth that was supposed to help you people keep shit in order in some kind of way is potentially stolen for somebody to be able to get a job, but you can't do anything about it. So I was just kind of sitting with this whole idea that, okay, like with the scammer that my parents dealt with the other day, they gave them, okay, my mom gave her phone number, her name, phone number, address, my dad's phone number, and my phone number as well, which I haven't heard anything from them. Probably, I'm assuming that the scammers probably have the suspicion that just because, my parents went along with the scam, it might not be safe to try to get me pulled into it as well. Especially, I feel like the message that I left the scammer with, the last message that, I don't know, that was the last one. It was the last one for that night. My dad was going back and forth with this supposed trucking company about some bullshit, and the guy was going, is basically, they work hard and fast, right? They try to keep you off balance, because as long as you're confused and not thinking clearly, that's when they are most likely to get money out of you or whatever else, right? So my dad's going back and forth with this guy, and it's like, obviously he's all jacked up and he doesn't think real great anyway. So I took his phone at one point and I responded. So I'm pretty confident that the way I responded, the guy knew that it was not the same person. I didn't ask my dad if any more had come about on that end. Afterwards, yeah, I should have. I might yet, I don't know. But that one scammer that my mom talked to for like a month or better, she apparently reached out to my mom again and said they got the puppy back, and what shipping company did she want to use? It's like, yeah, bullshit. You know, my mom told me that as I was getting ready to leave the house the other day, and I said, and if you go along with it, engaging with that at all, that's on you. I said, but that would be stupid. And my dad said that somebody from the puppy place had messaged him. It was like, yeah, it's like, disconnect, y'all. They can only fuck with you if you're giving them your attention, and whatever capacity or whatever degree you're giving them your attention, they're going to take advantage of it, because at least you're distracted from things you could be doing, or like better choices you could be making, all that fun stuff. But with like these different things that are supposed to make it so, you know, it can be verified who you are, right? So my mom gave her name, phone number, address, signature, which, by the way, that was a situation where she was trying to push me to forge her signature for something. It's like, yeah, I feel like I don't want to be in the middle of that. And especially when that's kind of illegal. But yeah, you know, like, my mom stopped asking me about it. She only asked me the one time about doing that for her. And, you know, there was that part of me that was thinking, well, she's got this broken arm. And then it's like, when did she get this paperwork? You know, it's like, how did all that come up? And surely she could find somewhere to print it off if it was that important, which obviously they did do that. But yeah. Okay. Anyway, like, she gave all these things that are supposed to be used to be able to verify who she is, right? But then there's like all these scammers and whatnot that are using this kind of stuff to steal stuff from you, steal your identity in whatever way or whatever the fuck they want to do with it. Set up other accounts in your name, or God only knows what. So the stuff that has been pushed, that, like, these are, you know, identifying things. You know, you have to verify, like, okay, like if you have to go to the doctor, name and birth date, right? At least that. But it's like, there's, I know my techie friend, you know, said make sure, you know, what some of their scams in the past, to set up the two-factor authentication for anything on, like, the computer, like the phone, whatever, when you're using your cards and all that stuff. It's like, okay, that makes sense, but at the same time, this whole matrix system is not really doing very good at keeping it so that's any kind of really protected, is it? You know, and there's like all these scammers and bullshit that come along and can do whatever the fuck they want to fuck with you. Or forever hound you. You can go away, that'd be alright. He's just kind of cruising around my phone right now. But yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about how, okay, like on this whole journey and getting to know or getting to choose to be different versions of me, right? Like, what does it look like going forward? And I've talked about how, you know, my, like, this whole healing thing, you know, okay, frequently mentioned the twin flame thing, and, you know, that put this entire other level of possibilities into my path, right? Or like the possibilities of things being different than the shitty way they always were before, right? And I feel like, okay, like with the the things that keep you bound to the identity, right? So, okay, we got your name, your address, your phone number, and your birthday and social security number. And yet it's looking more and more like there's no real way to be truly protected with those things. Like, okay, my brother and my dad have the same name, different middle name, same middle initial, and different birth date, different address, different phone number, yet the medical bills, like the hospital bills and stuff, get switched up between them. It's like, okay, so obviously, you use the two-factor things, you can verify who you are there, but then they still end up billing the wrong person somehow. So it's like all these things that are supposed to support who you are in some kind of way, I feel like they are more binding you to old identities as much as anything, right? So, I mean, yes, it's very handy to be able to order things that can, like, ship to you, because, you ordered them from somewhere online and, get it shipped to your house. Yes, that's nice. But then you get, like, this other stuff where, okay, somebody might have used my social security number to get a job. Okay. Yeah. But I feel like it's just different things to keep us bound to the old identity that's tied up in the matrix, right? The matrix of this 3D existence plane and all this fun stuff. So, like, I've been seeing the things in the news with governments refusing to, okay, whatever you were born with on your birth certificate, that is what you are forever bound to because that's how you were born, right? So, and big name people that feel like they're important, and maybe because they got a lot of money on something that they created, because it might have been decent or a lot of people deemed it to be decent, or good or whatever, then shift into the spotlight of being able to pat themselves on the back because they were somehow something that doesn't affect them but can be used to hurt other people who just want to exist. Yeah, obviously I'm avoiding names on that one and, like, the whole thing anyway. Let me just get sidetracked with this little inchworm. I think that's what he is. Yeah. Not much of an inch, though. But anyway, like, that stuff, it's like, how I'm feeling with that stupid collection agency was, I wasn't the one that made the original agreement to them anyway. That was, like, the bank that transferred my information to them, right? So it became their problem to hound me for money. But then they fucked up my name and have never been able to get it correct since then, even when I've asked multiple times. It's like, I'm not that person. I was never that person. So if you want to keep calling that person, that's fine. But, it's like, there are all these things to try to keep you bound to the old way of being and your old existence, and you're not supposed to be able to move beyond that, right? But if we break beyond the matrix, break out of the matrix, if you will, then spider was moving very quickly up my arm. To break out of the matrix, it's like, all right, well, I'm not that person, so now what are you going to do? So it's like all the things that the matrix uses to keep us bound to old ways of being. Like, okay, we got the toxic people, like, girlfriend that wants to keep everybody bound to what they were at their birth, even though it literally doesn't pertain to her, other than she somehow feels like she, some self-righteous pain in the ass, but has a problem with other people existing differently than what they were born as, right? So, like, this whole awakening journey thing has been, it's being able to reinvent yourself over and over again, right? And yeah, there are things in the old life, like the people I've been living with, or still adjacently connected to because they were a big, important part of my past life, but I've outgrown them. And that's okay. Because I came here to learn specific things, and I've talked a lot about how, one of the big things that I always wanted to learn was what makes people get stuck and feel like they can't move beyond the way that, okay, talked about the divorce thing many times. I always knew divorce was on my path, partly because my family, my grandfather especially, was the one who had always run around saying, well, my family doesn't get divorced. It's like, okay, so why is that the bad thing? Why is it a horrible thing to realize you made a mistake and get out of it? That doesn't mean that you're not worthy of having a good life because you made a mistake. That's, the mistakes that I made that got me there were all because I'd been conditioned to have a really bad view of myself, and I'm raised with that whole religious ideology bullshit that says you need somebody outside of yourself to save yourself, right? So you have to have Jesus in your life because you suck and can do nothing on your own. But the whole point of Jesus' life was strictly to show you can do this, you can do the healing work, you can move beyond everything that you've been brought up to believe about yourself. You can move beyond that. You can be somebody else. You can have a different life than the one that you were born into. But it's a matter of choosing yourself. But as long as you're dead set on believing that you have to have somebody outside of yourself to save you because you are so awful, that's exactly the bullshit that keeps you bound to the matrix to begin with. Right? So, yeah. So I was thinking, while I was skating, came back to it. It's always questionable if I'm going to get there, but I got there. Okay, so while I was skating, I was just thinking about, like, the different levels of this, like all the different things that, this 3D existence, matrix connection uses to keep us bound to the old identity so we can't become something better and something more. And we can't create a better way of being. Because if you are so convinced that, you're waiting on a hero to come save you for one thing, then that's where a lot of the bullshit comes in at, like, ouch. There's a small child over there, but every now and then it sounds like the helium getting let out of a balloon. But yeah, like, that's really distracting. They're being carried too, so. So yeah, we gotta stop being in agreement to the shit that got us to the bad places to begin with, right? So, I've talked about how my grandfather's death was well overdue, right? You know, he made it so at least 33 years of my life was wasted mourning his death, and he hadn't died. But because we were supposed to be so upset at the thought of losing him, we were never also allowed to have our own lives either. It's raining. That's all right. I would actually think that I would be getting slightly less rained on since I am under the tree, but yeah, perhaps I am. I'm just getting dripped on a little bit. So anyway, yeah. You know, but like by everybody going along with enabling the bad behavior and letting him obsess over his death, it was literally just sucking the life out of everybody else, right? So, you know, when he ended up in the hospital in August, and then he went from the hospital to the rehab center, and when he made that transition, I woke up one morning and I realized, as like I was having this conversation with him in my head, and I realized I had spent 33 years of my life mourning that man's death, and he hadn't died yet. And I said, I will not mourn your death any longer. And I didn't. And of course, I talked about how I did cry at a little bit at the funeral, but it wasn't because he was gone. It was the fact that why was my experience of this person so drastically different than everybody else's, you know? And then that of course goes back to that whole, I was the scapegoat, so, you know, I saw through his bullshit, and, you know, maybe the other grandkids, I think their experience of him was different on that end too, you know, mainly because of the standpoint of, well, I mean, I was the one that saw through his bullshit, and that's the biggest thing, you know, but nah, I don't know. Yep, definitely getting rained on. You know, and I've talked about like this whole, okay, the twin flame thing, like that's literally the thing that has been the biggest motivating factor on making me move and not quit when I've wanted to stop over and over again. And there have been, like, my entire life, you know, I struggled with suicidal ideation and all this stuff, but then realizing that a big part of that was because I felt like there was something wrong with my existence. But it wasn't that there was anything wrong with my existence. It's just I was born into a world that was perpetuating an old man's shit and crappy toxic beliefs and habits, and basically being abused by the life that I was in, right? You know, okay, that's another thing like that. I've mentioned that there are days with my mom where we get along just fine, but then just like, and I have those moments of, why isn't she like this more? But then also seeing how she turns on a dime to gloat if something doesn't work out for me, or to, you know, she was more than happy to hijack my day where I won that contest. The first thing I ever tried to put forth or put effort toward or do a thing for, that one was just I submitted pictures I'd already taken, and I'd taken the pictures like a year earlier. But it was, again, directly associated with the twin flame thing. But seeing how within a half hour of having found out that I won this thing, I was just trying to submit the paperwork to give the zoo permission to use my picture. And then she and my dad hijacked the day, and then I spend the rest of the day crying. It's like, the fuck? What is with my existence that we're back to this point again, right? And it's like, there was something yesterday where I kind of was feeling like that sort of, I don't know, not, I wasn't gaslighting myself, but it was still at that point of, why can't the good times be the norm? Why are they the ones that are so drastically different and, reinforce the whole trauma bond piece, I guess. Because it sucks, right? So Mother's Day was yesterday, and I did not say Happy Mother's Day to anybody. And, we spent time over with the family. I got the flowers outside, and as I've said on here multiple times, I deem that as more Mother's Day for the planet, right? And we'll just leave her with the illusion that it was for her, right? So it's something I enjoy doing and something I did for the planet more so than my mother. But my mother can claim it. And, just like seeing all the people with the happy posts and whatnot, and just like, cool. Especially when people want to say how important all the mothers are, but it's like, then there's this chunk of us that had a really shitty relationship or parts of relationships with our own mothers, and it's like, yeah, like some of the pages I followed say things like that, and it's like, but I can appreciate the sentiment that there are good mothers out there, but man, that sucks for all the people that don't have that. Just like seeing all this shit everywhere, it's like, okay, whatever. So I didn't say anything to my mother or my grandmother. And in fact, when my mom's youngest sister was leaving out the front door, and everybody was making the efforts of saying Happy Mother's Day to my grandmother and all this stuff, I shot out the back door and left before before anybody could try to rope me into it, or before I had to be leaving on my own and just didn't say the thing. It's just like somebody banged on the door on the window to get my attention after I walked out, and I was just kind of like one of those and walked off. It's like, nope, not doing that. And nobody ever said anything, surprisingly, but yeah. But like, just even feeling that piece of, when I felt bound to the life that I was in because it's the one that I knew, then there was very little hope for anything getting better, honestly. And even when I left my ex, then I had to come home and, start sitting with the point of realizing that I felt very unsafe in my own body, and then realizing that this is the reason why. It's because of all the people in my immediate environment that were hijacking my energy that I wasn't even aware of it, because I was never taught the importance of having boundaries, and not letting people have access to me all the time. I've talked a lot about how back in January I did that purge February, did that purge of Facebook friends. And it's like, I dropped like over 200 people. And I just remember thinking, it's like, we weren't friends. Why were we even connected on Facebook? We weren't friends in high school when I knew you, so why am I allowing you to see what's going on in my life? And I started disconnecting from people on that end. And, there were others that, like the friend that I stopped being friends with in January after she tried to pull me into her drama with her husband. It was like, It's like you're just looking for a reason that you can't, or to support the fact that you can't have adult friends. And so since I'm the one person who's been showing up and actually coming to visit you, an hour and 45 minutes away from my house, like she set it up she was looking for the self-fulfilling prophecy. She was trying to prove the thing that she couldn't have adult friends, and so she had to find a way to push me back because I was showing up and being a friend, right? So, all right, well, that's on you, but I'm tired of being pulled into people's drama, right? So after that whole thing came up, it was relatively easy to kick her off the friends list altogether, because what's the point? But yeah, like this whole thing, even it's like, okay, so I mentioned the twin flame thing and how that came up because I was at a point in my life where I didn't have a whole lot of hope that anything could ever be better, right? And the twin flame scenario put something in existence to choose to do the healing work that I needed to do to be able to get to a better life and be able to have a better life, right? And I talked about how even back in December, like I wasn't able to have dreams for myself at all because, going back to like the deal with my family, like if I tried to do anything, they fucked it up, right? That drumline win back in high school when I was trying to swallow my pride to thank my mom for her role in the thing, even though I kind of resented her role in the thing to some degree because that last moment after we won and she comes over to me and says, I deserve this as much as you do. It's like, fuck you. Right? So, and realizing that with the bear, the reason I never tried to do anything was because nothing would have ever been mine. If I would have, if anything would have been able to come from my writing sooner, she would have tried to make it about her somehow. And I was never supposed to have my own life. I was supposed to exist to allow my family to suck the life out of me. That was, as far as they're concerned, that's my only purpose, So since I've stopped going along with what they feel my purpose is, they don't like it. I don't care. And it's frustrating to have to face that fact over and over again. Like the days where, yes, there's a moment where I'm kind of getting along with my mom, and then knowing that, she wastes no time to gloat when something not so good happens. Like when the jackass at the ice cream place stuck his hand in my car to let Taz sniff him when Taz was already going nuts and Taz bit him. It's like, that asshole deserved that. Because what on earth gives anybody the right to feel like they have any kind of business sticking their hand in somebody's car? Especially with dogs, especially with a snarling dog. That's just, that's your own stupidity. Sorry about you. But that's that whole boundaries thing. And I thought the guy was walking past, because anytime anybody is near the car and my dogs start going off, that's their inclination, is to walk past the car, not to walk over and stick their hand in the car so the dog can smell it when they're snarling. No, go away, get further away so maybe the dog will settle down. Not, let's stick the hand in the fucking car. He's lucky I had a grip on that dog, because I had Taz by the collar, and I'm glad I didn't get nipped because of that chaos, because it was stupid. And Taz was like wired and had every right to be. But, so he feels like because he was walking past and set my dog off, that this gives him a right to stick his hand in my car. Or my mom feels that because this whole situation happened, she can gloat because my dog bit somebody, as though my dog was the problem. It's like, nope. Taz is Taz is his own thing, and he has been my problem a few times, but that was not him. That was not him at all. That was not his problem. That was some asshole stuck his hand in our space when he was trying to, it's his job to protect the space, right? But yeah, like how quick she was to gloat when my dog bit somebody. It's like that right there. That's why I've never been able to do anything. You can go back to that mama cardinal that had the nest in the rose bush outside of the front window. When I saw her, at first I thought it was like a sparrow or something. Just speckled eggs. I didn't know multiple birds had those. I knew it wasn't a blue one, so it wasn't a robin, but yeah, but I found out the next day that it was a female cardinal. Well, then of course she came to learn very quickly that that was not a safe spot, right? So, I was very disappointed, but understanding when she kicked the egg out of the nest and abandoned the nest, and all I can think about with that now is she knew it wasn't safe for her to build something there, to put forth her love and affection to raising her little babies in that spot because it was not safe, and then realizing that was very much the universe teaching me that that's the thing I've been doing. Like every time I've sabotaged anything for myself, it's because I knew it wasn't safe for me to really put me into something, right? To put my heart and my being into anything that I wanted to create. So that is exactly why I have always sabotaged myself, right? So then the twin flame thing comes up and it finally gives me something to have to work for and do the healing, the hard healing for, right? And it's not very hard to go back to any of my old videos and find me crying my way through them for various reasons. So that's the point of my journey is, authenticity is very important to me. So, I think there are not enough of us that have been open to sharing the painful stuff and owning it, right? I think that's changing, and I feel like this generation especially is very much, we're here to do this, to transmute the ridiculously difficult shit. And every time I see somebody who's all at once successful, but then they're talking about their backstory and talking about some of these things, and there's another page or another creator I found on Instagram recently, MargotMillerOfficial or something. I'll look it up and verify it, but I think something like that. But she had a video she put out this morning talking about the crumbling of everything in her own world and the healing from the narcissistic abuse and all that stuff. And that's an important part of the process, healing from the shit, but that's how we transmute the shit that we've had to grow up in and we've carried with us for our lives, right? So that's what we're here to do, right? So going back to the skating, yesterday, I was just kind of thinking through all these different things and how, the 3D existence, the Matrix, whatever. Like, it tries to keep you bound to a single identity, so you can't ever recreate yourself. But it's like, we're literally here to recreate ourselves as much and as often as we want, to build the life of our choosing, right? And so if we stay locked into all the different ways other people deem we're only acceptable to exist in, then, well, not going to create a life that we want to live, right? So fuck them. You know, and like, that's the biggest thing. I think I feel like so many people want to give news and all that bullshit their attention to know what's going on, but it's like, if you stop giving those things your attention, that's when you can start really having new experiences, right? So I might be mostly oblivious to what's going on in the news, but at the same time, I know that there's a lot of stuff that's not really affecting me in my existence. And, you know, the things that want to try to pull me back into the toxicity, you know, I actively avoid those things. So I will say, here lately, I don't think I've noticed as much news type BS being played at our house. So yeah, for that. But yeah, it's like, as long as they have your attention, then they make you think that it's a bigger thing than it actually is. But the less attention you give it, and the more you can connect with people that don't suck, you know, then we're better off. We stand the chance of being able to build something different, right? What is it they say? Energy flows where attention goes. Yeah. The skating. Okay, let's back to the skating. Okay. So while I was skating yesterday and thinking through all this stuff and feeling some kind of freedom that I have never felt in my life, right? You know, and I've been doing this manifestation thing. Okay, like, I've talked about the manifestation water, and like, I fill it up out of the fridge. It's this glass bottle, and I have this list of things I want to manifest, you know, and currently, you know, being the highest version of me that I can be, you know, having a safe space to, you know, paint and decorate however the fuck I want, as well as the safety and security to be able to create, you know, whatever I want to create in that space. You know, if I'm doing videos there, not having to worry about the family be around, that kind of things. You know, I want to manifest my own space. I want to manifest a good car that I'm not running around with the check engine light on, but here we are, for the meantime. You know, so like, you know, stepping into this new level of being for me, right? And so that's kind of been my thing. And like, every morning, sometimes I have to catch myself, but because I walk away and forget until, you know, I'm in the other room and it's like, ooh, forgot to do the thing, right? So the thing is going through and reading everything on the list. There's like 7 different things, and it all pertains right now to creating the life of my choosing. And, you know, I read the list and then drink the water. And I feel like I am changing. Like, everything is shifting and starting to fall into place for me. And it's like, you know, maybe it doesn't appear like it just yet, but it's like, I feel so much different. I feel like things are shifting. I feel like I'm getting ready to line up with the things that I do want in my life, right? The friends, the love, the career, the things, right? And yeah, so like, that's the, these birds are fighting. That's been the big thing. So I was skating yesterday and feeling this freedom, And, I had my arms out and my head back and was just kind of enjoying the moment. And I opened my eyes and I see this hawk soaring overhead. And it's like, hey, it was just like, yeah. It's like in that moment, it felt like my higher self, right? I was soaring with myself at a whole new level that I wouldn't have believed possible before, kind of a thing. But I saw the hawk the first time, right? And then I was kind of looping the area, just getting some distance in. We went 8 miles yesterday. And it didn't come back. Like, I went on this back road and then went back to and looped to the parking lot. So every now and then, I don't always do this. But I did yesterday, and there have been times where I will do it. I will make 3 laps around the parking lot one way, then go back this road that goes to the back of the building, then come back that way, which sometimes I skate backwards that spot. It's one of the few spots I trust with very few rocks and things to trip over. So sometimes I skate backwards. I started that once, and I think I got distracted with picking up trash because I was on my way to the trash can too. But then I come back and go around the other lot, or the same lot, the other direction. So I did 3 one way and then 3 the other way, and then loop back and then come back and do a 2, and then go back and then come back, do it the other way 2, and kind of that way. Sometimes I count down, sometimes I get bored and distracted and lose count, and sometimes I just get tired of it. So yeah. But I'm not bound to it. I can do whatever the fuck I want because it's just my skate, right? And so, yeah, yesterday when I was on one of the rounds around the parking lot, then I saw the hawk again, and I was able to get some really good pictures of it. And, of course, past few years, I've gotten some decent hawk pictures. One sitting on the corner of the nursing home building when we had to pick my grandfather up to take him to an appointment one day, and another that was on a power line when I was coming home from work. It was like the one that went over our driveway, so it was like, ooh, nobody's coming, it's a Saturday, hold on, let me just get a picture, or Sunday or whatever, and so I've gotten some really cool pictures of him, but that was a really cool picture of it flying. But then I started thinking about, maybe it's like I should put that as my picture for my YouTube banner thing or whatever. And it's like, I wonder how you add a watermark. So then I started thinking about all this, this whole thing, about putting watermarks on pictures. And then I was thinking about I should work on rebranding my channel, because I got the family disappointment thing on there. I think I'm ready to be done with that one. And I've been thinking about some other things, and then I started trying to design a logo yesterday. It's like, oh man, this is kind of rough. I got this thing that I really love, and I really love the color on, but then trying to add these other elements is a struggle. And so I talked to the girl that does the earrings, Wendy, Eklektik shelf, yes. I asked her about the logo thing and how she went about doing hers, and she talked about Canva and playing around on there. Well, I got the app and was looking at it, and it's like, oh man, this makes my head hurt. And then I sent my techie friend a message and was like, what do you know about logos and stuff? And he said, he told me who had done his, and back when he first started his computer company. And then he said, you can also get them done on Fiverr and hire somebody to do it for you. And I was like, all right, well, so let's look into this, and how much does that cost, and all that kind of stuff, right? So I started playing on that app. First thing, okay, I've mentioned before when I was getting my ear piercings, the third hole, and then this, third hole on both sides. I was like, there was 5 of them. That's only 4. Oh, because the other one's over here. But when I was doing that, I had this thought, okay, before I went into that, I had this thought that it would be cool to see my birthday in the wild somewhere completely unrelated to my birthday when something big is getting ready to happen. Now, when I said this, originally it was twin flame related stuff specifically, right? So yesterday, my friend tells me about this Fiverr website, and you can hire somebody to do the thing then that way. And so I started looking into it on there, and of course the first thing it does is send you the thing to confirm your email address or whatever with the numbers and the 6 numbers, the last 4, 7983. It's like, oh, that something's important's going on right now. And of course it is, because I've been thinking all day about like branding and like creating this logo and this thing for me, because I want to, and lining up with the higher version of myself. What does this look like? These kind of things, right? And then here's my birthday on this thing. So what I think I'm gonna do, what I know I'm gonna do is I should have a decent check coming this week. So I'm going to make sure I get after the storage unit first, and then also link up with somebody on this app, because I figure since that 111 since that came up when I was on that app specifically, because the Canva app, it sent the same kind of thing, but it was a completely different number and had no relevant numbers. So then clearly this other thing, with my numbers in it, I feel like that's more my direction, so I don't know. I've been really excited the past couple of days, just like seeing things like start to come together, and how I feel like I can actually be excited about something, and I'm looking forward to whatever's coming, right? I've been saying for a while, I feel like I'm right there, and I'm on the verge of the good things flowing in finally. I talked about how I felt like my brother and his family moving was the start of this big like cascade of good things, right? Of course, them moving out of here for their sake, but also helps to help me disconnect from this space as well, because my brother's not going to be stuck here with that crap with the family either. He's getting out and having his own situation that will, work out just fine too. So yeah, and especially with like how tired it made me in a hurry when I was looking at the Canva stuff and trying to organize my thoughts around these things and create these things. And it's like, where can't I just have somebody do it for me? But then Fiverr exists, so I can, right? And yeah. So that's the current game plan. Yeah. And I've talked a lot on here too about how until December, when my brother and his family started looking elsewhere, when they said if they moved somewhere else I would be welcome to go with them, it's like, before that I had just assumed myself bound to whatever this existence is, right? And it's like I didn't have a way out, and it's like, wait a second, that would be a possibility. And that was enough of a possibility to allow me to start dreaming bigger things for myself, and starting to really spend time thinking about what it is that I want to create for my own life. And yeah, obviously we still got work to do, but I think learning this balance on surrendering to what is, dreaming what I would love to have, and continuing to make the forward steps to allow it to fall into place, right? It's like all these different levels of it, right? So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I have a lot to look forward to, though, and that's like this whole different thing for me too, because I always sabotaged everything. It's like I was afraid to have dreams back then because my life always found a way to suck the life out of them, right? And that was because of my family. Well, now that I feel less connected to my family and more ready to leave them in the past so I can go have some kind of better existence, that's a big one. Oh gosh. Okay, so yesterday, everybody is supposed to be all excited and swoony about baby grandpa, right? And I've talked many times, like, I just don't care. I'm happy for my cousin and for her husband that they have their baby and whatnot. I'm glad I took my headphones yesterday, because, okay, we were over there at my grandma's house, and everybody comes in the room and they're just fawning over the baby and all this bullshit, and just like, ugh, and talking about how much like grandpa he is in this way and in that way, and it's like, ugh. I just put my headphones on, listen to the new song over and over and over again, because I wasn't trying to deal with all that shit. And then at one point I ended up going outside and sitting on the porch swing, and it's like, I really kind of want to doodle this logo and kind of work with some things on this, right? And so I thought of the one thing, and I really liked it, and then I get kind of stuck with it. But I ended up having to like go back home to get my sketchbook and kind of try to doodle things. It's very frustrating, because it's like, I know that I can draw sometimes, but it's such a concentrated effort for me that it's like I don't particularly enjoy it. I am capable of doing it. Like, I drew the vulture that I had taken a picture of. I was like, I bet I could draw that. And, I sat down one night and I did, and I really liked how it turned out. But then, like, most times when I try to sit down and write or draw something, it's just like, oh, it's just like putting forth the effort to do it makes me tired. Which I think, that too is to push me to talk to other people and to, find potential collaborations, because the doodling process is only enjoyable to a certain extent, and then it's check out, can't do this anymore. And then I feel like I need a lot of sleep afterwards. It's like channeling effort from that particular creative path, just woof. So yeah, and I think that's the big thing right now, is it's just following the inspired steps, right? Taking inspired action, and going as far as it goes. So, when I start getting frustrated with the doodling and can't go any further with, what I want for the possibility of this logo, because I meant to bring somebody else in to help me with it, right? But then, like, there's other elements, like, okay, the Canva thing, I was talking about, like, it had, like, the header, or, like, your quote, or whatever, like, all these different pieces, and I had something that came up on that end for me yesterday as well. It's like, or last night, or was it this morning? I think it was last night right before I went to bed. but I wrote down, no, it was this morning. I wrote down this little thing that like popped into my head, and it's like, all right, that's what popped into my head. We're rolling with it. We're not going to obsess over it and try to, suck the life out of it in any kind of way, like I was raised to do. That's how the family does. It's like you do the thing, and it's okay to walk away from it and let it breathe and, kind of percolate until the next thing, right? So, yeah. But I'm kind of excited because it feels like things are starting to come together, and I'm really excited. Be really, really excited when it comes to the part where I get out of here. But I feel like that's just around the corner. And even then, I've talked about that a lot of times too, like how I had no idea where I would want to go. So being able to, when my sister-in-law mentioned that I would be able to go with them if they found somewhere else, then it was like interesting possibility. Then it was like, okay, if I could go anywhere in the world, where would I go? And then I don't know that I will end up there necessarily, or maybe near there. I think somewhere around there I probably will. But, like the whole Philadelphia thing came up, and then I've realized that that's another thing that's been dancing around me for at least the past several years, at least since 2012, right? So 2012 is when I met my ex, but it's like, okay, there was the idea of the twin flame that I heard. This whole twin flame idea, I thought it was Tyler at that point in time because I knew he was important to me, but then I figured it was something that was just like, yeah, this unrequited situation that's just not ever meant to be, and blah blah blah, and there's a blue jay, 2 blue jays. And yeah, like it came up. So like I feel like part of the importance of the fact that it came up around the time I met my ex was so that I would be able to later look back and realize that had I not been so distracted with this low perspective of myself, this other thing has literally been around me my entire life. And I've talked about his name dancing around me, and I've talked about like the other things that y'all, I don't know where this little dude came from, but all at once there he is and scared the shit out of me. Probably fell out of the tree. Here, get the stick. You want the stick. It's a good idea. Yeah. Okay, you don't need to be on me. Scared the crap out of me. Probably fell out of the tree. God only knows what else would be on me when I'm walking away. Is that not where you wanted to go? Well, now I don't know where to put you. I just put you right there. Anyway, he'll figure it out. But yeah, like, I talked a lot previously about You're the Dragon connections, and then thinking, and like I said, I have no way of proving this one way or another, and I'm not about to Google anything about this dude, because I would rather find out from him, Like I said, I've been writing it all down, the twin flame books. He got to the bigger stick. Basically journaling everything that I'm learning and, starting to question and seeing how how much those things are accurate. And I think I mentioned the Gem Goddess reading or where they said, you'll be right, but it's about learning to trust your intuition. It's like, okay. So, yeah. I think Iso and Kino, maybe all 3 of them, there have been like different readings that I've watched where like some of the people will pull charms or letters, and some will just use like the letters on the cards that stick out to them. But I've heard Pennsylvania pop up several times in different readings, and it's like, and then I when I was cleaning the closet the other day and found that freaking puzzle that my aunt and uncle had gotten me, that I was really confused why they had gotten me this puzzle, except for then I realized that, I just put it in the closet because I still had it, but, I didn't know what to do with it, because I usually go for the brightly colored things, and this one was like the Philadelphia skyline, like at dusk. It was like, it's pretty, but I was just like, I don't understand why you thought of me, but then when I was going back to it and I was looking at, like, all I did was put my hand on it, I knew exactly what it was. It's like, one of those ways that it's been dancing around me recently, right? But like in the past decade or whatever, probably more like 15 years for that one. But yeah, so it's like, when you start asking and paying attention, it's like it takes me that point of when I was in high school and thought, going back with that name project that I did for that writing assignment, and I, focused on my name, of course, just the Sarah Lynn part, but, my first name means princess, and the middle name, it's kind of like, there's a few different things that I found, but the one that got my attention the most was like waterfall, or something waterfall related. I was like, well, I am really partial to waterfalls. And then I watched some tarot reading where they were talking about how, the different water signs, and Pisces are like the ocean, and then Cancers are like moving water. So it's like, wow, a waterfall. I've always loved a good waterfall. So that kind of makes sense. And then, I don't know, Scorpio, like, I don't know, I'm thinking lakes, but I don't know. That might have been a natural mystic thing that I watched too. But yeah, it's like, as soon as that came up, I just went back to this thing that I wrote. It was like Princess of the Waterfall or something, and don't remember anything about it other than that was the idea of it. And I remember thinking, what if I get to, a later point in my life and realize that I left myself clues all along the way for like what I was meant to do, right? And then finding out that I've been leaving myself clues all along the way, and I just didn't realize that that's what was going on, right? So, when I had that thought originally, it was like my name meaning princess, right? I thought, what if that came about because I knew that this whole suicidal ideation thing was going to be such a prominent feature of my life on this path, and the princess was a way of reminding me that I had way more value than I ever realized or would realize. It's like, that's interesting. So, yeah, I feel like there's something to that, but yeah. Oh, yeah, the Year of the Dragon thing. And, of course, school mascot was a dragon. And, of course, because of band, we did a Year of the Dragon show for the Year of the Dragon way back then, 2000-ish, I think. And then, going back to the Twin Flame end, when I was setting some kind of parameter the last time I was on a dating app and had to think about like the age gap. It's like, okay, if I was, how much younger would I be willing to date? And then at the time I was like, I think 5 years is enough. Just like with, what I've learned of like psychological development and all these things. It's like, I felt like 5 was a good space. right? Time gap. Or, yeah, whatever. But then when I was thinking about the stuff with the Year of the Dragon, it's like, okay, well, if he was born in a Year of the Dragon, okay, if he falls into the 5 years younger space, then that would put him at most likely being born in the Year of the Dragon. So thus it's dancing around me in all these ways because it's actually a clue. And I've talked about his name, and I've talked about his birth date, and popping up frequently, and I've seen it many times in this video even, and not called attention to it today, but yeah. And I think that's like the big thing. Like, there have been moments on this journey that I have felt like, particularly with the YouTube thing, that I was supposed to talk more about it. I talked about that in the fall. It's like I feel like I'm supposed to be focusing on this a little bit more, right? And sharing these kind of things. And then it was January before I even said his name in the video. In the first one, I set the intention that I was ready. And I said that I was ready, but I didn't say his name. But I thought his name at the time I was setting the intention, or saying the intention in the video, but I ended up saying his name after that, like the next video or something anyway. So it's like, could have just jumped and done it, but nope, we had to panic. And what's that on it? But then like these other things have been coming up. It's like that I've been talking about more. And it's like, I know that again is why I had to have the mental health struggle concerns along the way, because I've already dealt with all that shit. So now that I'm speaking to stuff that I keep being pointed in the direction of, it's like the person's never changed. Like the name, the birth date, like the things that I do know that keep following me. It's like they're consistent, and me trying to deny that is only going to mess myself up. So, I've talked about the possibility of, okay, I am kind of back and forth on this other point, because the big thing is it takes a little while for the 3D to catch up to the 5D. So I've been able to stay in this higher mode of thinking for, the twin flame connection and like all that stuff working out, right? But then at the same time, 3D takes a while to catch up, and it takes some time talking like and sounding like a crazy person on the videos before it can work out into the real world. Which again is just, we're all just dreaming the dream together, right? So what kind of dream are we trying to dream? But like every time I want to question the connection, it's like I cannot question this connection at all, because it's literally the thing that thinking about this connection at different levels has been the thing that has kept me moving on the healing process. And like when I would have shut down otherwise, it was like the thing that was like, nope, you can't do it. What are you gonna do? We gotta face this thing, right? And I talked about how like the one dream that I had where it like got stuck, and I like just kept getting all these flowers until I got this sort of breaking point and was like, stop it, I don't deserve this. And then the dream kind of cleared up and was like, why do you feel like you don't deserve this? It's like, well, because my life showed me that, I guess. And then having to process through that kind of stuff. It's like, it's always been the big stuff. It's always been the things that I would abandon ship on processing through. Like, it's been a long time since I felt any kind of close to my dad. And especially when, I was raised to think that, women are somehow less than men or whatever, and you're supposed to, I needed somebody outside of myself to save myself. So when I end up in this toxic connection, I needed my dad or my brother to say, not this dude, he ain't right, you know, and neither one of them did, because they didn't feel right doing it. So it's like, okay, so then we have to deal with that, you know. But even then, you know, I've talked about that, like when the whole twin flame thing came up and I finally realized who he is, you know, then I ended up kind of going through this little phase of where it felt like a mourning period of, could have had this connection sooner kind of a thing. And it's like, it couldn't have been sooner. It's like this, everything that has happened was needed to happen for some reason to make the good connection even better when it does get here, right? And, you know, like one of the big things that came to mind was, no, my ex wasn't a good situation, but I was also toxic, and that was what got me there, right? My toxic thinking got me in a toxic connection, you know, because of my toxic upbringing, right? And that was what I thought I deserved. So because I thought I deserved that, then that was all I was able to receive, right? But then that's been a big part of my journey, and what I'm here to do is to unravel the stuff that, you know, the bullshit thinking, like the fact that I don't deserve anything worthwhile in my life because that's what the world around me conditioned me to believe. Like, no, that's crap. You know, it's like, just because you exist, you are lovable. But you have to start with yourself. Because if you cannot love yourself, you cannot receive love from others, right? So, that's like the biggest thing on this journey, right? And, you know, realizing with that connection with my ex, it's like, no, that wasn't a good place for me to be at. But because of my thinking and my own toxic thinking, that's why I ended up there. But his brother needed help. And I was there to help his brother. Because his brother is one of the good guys, right? So even though my ex was not one of those, his brother was, and his brother was getting shat upon just because of his brothers being toxic, you know? So I can't regret that. I can't regret helping the people that needed it along the way that I have helped. Even if it was difficult for me for a time. So I actually was thinking earlier, so my former brother-in-law's daughter, I had this makeup thing at one point that's like, it had like teal colors in it. It was a pretty color, but it's like, I don't use these colors. I don't know how to use these colors. And they're like, I use this color, and it's like, I don't like it. But I didn't know what exactly it was that I didn't like about it. And I ended up wearing it to some family thing they were having. And when I was around her, she didn't say anything mean. She just said, that's a lot of pigment. It's like, it is, isn't it? It's like, that is what it is that I don't like about it. So she was like this 9 or 10-year-old artistic kid, and like all she did was point out that it was a lot of pigment. It's like, yes, but so how do we fix this? So, you know, that's helped me be able to play with my makeup a lot more, more too. But just thinking about it was a little kid that just made a statement. She wasn't wrong by any means. It's like, I didn't like it, but I didn't know what exactly it was I didn't like it, because I liked the color. I just didn't like how it looked, you know, so... the time the small child helped me with my makeup. It wasn't that she like helped me with it, she just pointed out that it was a lot of pigment, and it's like, yes, okay, so now I have a point to move from, right? I was thinking there was something else I wanted to talk on that end, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just call it there because I don't really know. I was thinking of something earlier and it's gone now. It's not raining now. It's an hour and a half. Where I'm at 4 o'clock. My dogs are probably hungry. Let me get this crap off my phone. Yeah, I guess I'll go home. So, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.